So let's look at what the Buddha actually said about Samatha and Vipassana. So many people have got so many different views about what Samatha and Vipassana is. Let's look at the Buddha's definition. And this is found in the Tatiya Samadhi Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya, book of Force, Sutta number 94. Let me give you a background of this sutta. In this sutta, the Buddha talks about 4 types of individuals. Right? The first type of individual is someone who has attained internal serenity of mind, ajjatam ceto samatha. Alright? But he has not attained adi panya dhamma vipassana. He has not attained vipassana. Adi panya dhamma vipassana, the higher wisdom that is able to see dhammas or things distinctly. Right? That's vipassana. And then the second individual is someone who has attained adi panya dhamma vipassana, who has attained vipassana but not samatha. The third person who has attained neither. And the last person is someone who has attained both. Okay, so his instruction was, alright, if you have got vipassana but not samatha, go and learn samatha. Go and learn samatha from somebody who has attained samatha. Alright? And then if you have not attained vipassana but attained samatha, go and learn vipassana from somebody else who has attained vipassana. And if you have not attained either, go and learn both. Right? If you know both, don't be complacent. Keep on meditating until you attain arahantship. Okay? That's what he says. And now, the important thing is, when the person who has not attained samatha goes to ask the person who has attained samatha, he has to ask 4 questions. From these 4 questions, we know what the Buddha means, by samatha. And for the person who has not attained vipassana, when he goes to ask the person who has attained vipassana, he should ask 3 questions. Okay, so let's do these 4 and 3 questions. What is samatha? Katang chittam santapetappam. Okay, we already saw this word, santitati. I want to bring you back to your book on Satipatthana Sutta on page 96. Right at the top, right within, his mind still settles, becomes unified and is composed. Can you see that? Okay, and you see on the left, it says Chittang Santitati Sannisidati Ekoli Hodi Samadhiyati. That one is a present tense. But this one is something else. It's talking about how is the chitta to be made to stand properly. And the second question is Katang Chittan Sannisade Tappang. How is the chitta to be made to sit properly? Like I already told you yesterday, right? Santitati and Sannisidati literally means this. But then figuratively or idiomatically, we translate it as steadied and settled down. It's just to show you different levels of stability. This assumes that the mind was running around, and then you try to make the mind stand still. And then after you stand still, you make it more stable to sit down. Katam chittam ekoti kadappam. How is the chitta to be made unified? Alright, like I said, the chitta comprises different departments, of different mental states, and each one of them has its own function. So how do you harmonize all of them, unify them to work together? Katam chittam samadha tappam. How is the chitta to be brought together and placed? Alright, this is composed. So here from this, I prefer to translate samatha as stilling. It's a process of stilling the mind, and it goes through 4 steps. The first step is to steady it, settle it down, and unify it, and finally to compose it. Alright? So the end result of samatha is samadhi. Right? But samadhi need not necessarily mean jhana, right? Because we've got 4 types of samadhi. And samadhi, when you look at page 96, by clenching your teeth and pushing your tongue against the palate, you also can get samadhi. So that is stilling the mind, not that sort of high level samadhi. So samadhi actually has a whole range, from a very low level samadhi to a high end samadhi. Okay, what is vipassana? 3 questions. Gatang sankhara dattabha. Gatang is how, right? Sankhara, I'll translate sankhara later, okay? How are sankhara to be seen? Sankhara is a plural in Pali. And you look at the word dattabha, actually is it comes from, it shares the same root as ditti, samaditi, right view. This one is dattabha. And you could say, how are sankharas to be viewed? Viewed in the sense of how are they to be regarded? Not seen in the sense of vipassana, but regarded or viewed. Gatang sankhara sammasitabha. Okay, how are sankhara to be investigated? Sammasitabha actually literally means how do you knead it? Like you knead a dough to knead a dough to make it well mixed up and even. How do you investigate sankhara? And number 3, katang sankhara vipassitabha. Okay, this is the verb form of vipassana. Right? How are sankhara to be seen distinctly? That's how I prefer to translate vipassana. And let's look at the word analysis of vipassana. The prefix vi can carry a whole range of possible meanings. It can mean clear, distinct, distinguished, separate, special, various. And I think using the word distinct covers almost all of them. Yeah, if you see something distinctly, you could also see it in a special way from various angles. Right? The various here refers to anicca, dukkha, anatta, and conditionality. And seeing, of course, refers not to literal seeing with your eyes, but seeing with wisdom, with the eye of wisdom. Not just intellectual reasoning, but actually experiencing it. So vipassana, I translate as distinct seeing. And now from these 2 slides, from these 2 sets of questions, what can we conclude? What is samatha and what is vipassana? This sutta shows that you can even get vipassana without samatha. But vipassana also, there are very different levels. There's a whole range of vipassana. Maybe the sort of vipassana you get is very, low end. I guess for this second type of individual, the vipassana is a low end vipassana. And if you get more samatha, then you will go higher to a higher end vipassana. In the course of my research, I stumbled across something. Okay, look at this one. Developing just one spiritual faculty of panya brings about the subsequent establishment of the others, culminating in the attainment of final knowledge. See, so those who have a very strong wisdom root, just by doing panya, you can develop the rest of the faculties. This comes from Patama Pubbarama Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 48.45. You can check out this in Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. Right? The 5 spiritual faculties. Okay, you have faith, right? Mindfulness, effort, and then samadhi and panya. Right? So what this sutta says is that you just develop panya, all the rest will come. You don't even start from sati or faith. You just start from panya straight away. So this is an exceptional character. Also, there's another sutta called Yuganada Sutta in Anguttara Nikaya where Ayasma Ananda said that anyone, bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, who comes to proclaim to him, declare their arahantship, they will do so through 4 ways or any one of them. And the first one is samatha first and then vipassana, then vipassana first and then samatha, and then the next one is to combine both in tandem, both samatha and vipassana together, and the last one is none of the above. The one is due to agitated mind, the mind agitated by the Dhamma. Okay, that could apply to Eckhart Tolle if he's really enlightened. We don't know. Okay, assuming that he is. Okay, anyway, let me continue or we'll never end. From these two sets of questions, we can come to this conclusion. Samatha is about how to still the mind, as Asma Kumara pointed out just now. It is not about objects of focus, right? Nothing mentioned about objects. It's just how to still the mind only. So it doesn't matter what object you're using, whether you're using conceptual objects or whether you're using ultimate realities. If you do it the right way, you can still calm your mind. You can still still your mind. When we teach open awareness, people ask, how can you get samadhi? You're all over the place. But you can get samadhi because the mind does not get involved in thinking. As long as it's with the five senses, it's okay. What agitates you is not the five senses, but your thinking, your reaction to them. That's why in the Tibetan tradition, and for your information, the Tibetans come from the Sarvastivadins. They are very early Buddhists as well, but later on, they got champo a lot of many things from India. According to the Tibetan classification, open awareness is samatha. It's samatha practice. It's not vipassana. Vipassana starts only when you start to see, things arising and passing away in terms of causes and conditions. So the three steps that I taught you is only samatha, not just vipassana. That's just to calm your mind. When your mind is calm already, then only you start to investigate. Then only vipassana starts. Okay, then what is vipassana? Vipassana is about the object of focus. Now, this vipassana is about object, not samatha. But the Visuddhimagga says that he classifies samatha and vipassana in terms of object. Samatha is about conceptual objects. Vipassana is about ultimate reality. But that's not what the Buddha said. The Buddha did not classify samatha in terms of object. He classified samatha as the process of stilling the mind. No matter what object you use, that's up to you. Right? That's why in the jhanas, the Buddha never specified any objects. You see so detailed descriptions of the jhanas with so many similes, but nothing is mentioned about the object of focus. So you can get jhana using any object as long as the jhana factors are there. Okay, so vipassana is about the object of focus, which is sankhara, and how to regard these sankharas, how to investigate them, and develop insightful understanding about them. Okay, that's what vipassana is all about. Now this brings us to the question, what is sankhara? In the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, we see this, Handa dani bhikkhave amandiyami vo vaya dhamma sankhara apamadena sampadeta, which we always say, the last two words, after you observe your precepts, you say apamadena sampadeta, right? What does this mean? Now monks, let me address you. Sankhara have the nature of vanishing. With heedfulness, fulfill your goal. Okay? So sankhara has the nature of vanishing. That's what sankhara is. Right? Whatever has the nature of vanishing is sankhara. It doesn't matter whether it's concept or whether it's ultimate reality. Are your thoughts permanent or not? Are your ideas permanent or not? My slides are not permanent. They're changing all the time. The more workshops I do, the more slides I come out with. So that's also anicca, dukkha, anatta, due to causes and conditions. Right? So you don't just push your thoughts away, your thoughts, your thinking, your belief system, your ideas, your assumptions, your expectations, they are all sankharas. They are also to be seen in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta, to be seen in terms of conditioning. That's why modern psychotherapists, are making use of this in their treatment, and they are gaining so much success. Because it's all about conditioning. In fact, the father of them all, Jung and Freud, their psychology was heavily influenced by Buddhist and Hindu thought. That's why they came out with this psychology. But of course, Buddhism is psychology without the psyche. Okay, anyway, there's another one. There's also in Parinibbana Sutta. But this was not said by the Buddha. This was said by, I think it was Sakka Devaraja. And this is what we recite so often at our funerals. Anicca vata sankhara upada vayadam ubhajetva nirojjanti tesam upasamo sukho. And what does this mean? Impermanent indeed are sankhara. Their nature is arising and vanishing. Having arisen, they cease. Their appeasement is happiness. So definition of sankhara is whatever that has the nature of arising and vanishing. Whether it's conceptual or paramattha, whatever it is, that is sankhara. Then in the context of the 5 khandhas, we also got sankhara, right? And this one is defined one way in Kachaniya Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 22.79. And he says, Kincha bhikkhave sankhare vadeta sankata mabi sankharontiti ko bhikkhave tasma sankharati uchiti. And what monks do you call sankhara? Because they condition the conditioned. Thus they are called conditioned conditioners. Alright, so there's both a passive and there's both a passive and an active aspect in sankharas. As I mentioned the other day, they arise because of causes and conditions. But once they arise, they are also the cause and condition for other things to arise. And particularly so for sankhara as part of the 5 khandhas, because there's volition there. Alright? And so that's an active conditioning of other things. Now, how do we see sankhara? How do we view sankhara? Sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atane bindati dukkhe esamago visuddhiya. This is found in the Dhammapada, which we chant so often and chanted all over in Burma, particularly in meditation centers. All sankhara are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one wearies of suffering. This is the path to purification. Sabbe sankhara dukkhati yada panyaya pasati ata nibbindati dukkhe esamago visuddhiya. All sankhara are suffering. When one sees with wisdom, one wearies of suffering. This is the path to purification. Okay, the last one is Sabbe Dhamma Nattati Yada Panyaya Pasati Atta Nibbindati Dukkhe Esamago Visuddhiya. All Dhammas are not self. When one sees with wisdom, one wearies of suffering. This is the path to purification. Now, people ask me sometimes, why is it the third one is different from the others? You know? Why the first 2 sankhara, the last one Dhamma? Okay? Anyone can answer this? No time already, better answer for you. Because Nibbana is also a Dhamma. And Nibbana does not arise and pass away. So that's why all Dhammas, whether they arise and pass away or not, all Dhammas are anatta. Even Nibbana is also not atta. That's what he's trying to say. Alright, so this, we see sankhara in terms of this anicca, dukkha, anatta. Right? That's how we do Vipassana. This one is found is Yadanicca Sutta in Samyutta Nikaya. I think it's in Khanda Samyutta about the aggregates. What is impermanent? That is suffering. What is suffering? That is not self. What is not self? This is not mine, this is not me, this is not myself. Thus is it to be seen with right wisdom as it has occurred. Right? And then when this, when you see this, thus seeing, the informed noble disciple wearies of the 5 khandhas. Being weary, he detaches. Due to detachment, he is liberated. So this is to consolidate what we see in the Dhammapada, what is written in the Dhammapada, because some people say that Dhammapada may not be spoken by the Buddha, because there's nothing mentioned there about who actually spoke the Dhammapada, right? But this one is certain, this one is in the Samyutta Nikaya, and this is what the Buddha said according to our Pali tradition. What is interesting about this sutta is that it starts off with what is impermanent, and then it goes on to what is suffering, and then what is not self. So not self is based on impermanence. Yeah? And then the next sutta talks about starting from suffering. Now what is suffering is not self. So it seems that eventually you must go to not self. Then there's a third sutta which goes straight to not self. You know, without starting with anicca, without starting with dukkha. Right? First sutta starts with anicca, then it goes on, from there it goes on to dukkha to anatta. The second sutta, it starts off with dukkha, and then it goes on to anatta. The third sutta, it just starts off with anatta straight away. So this one really depends on the individual. You know, some people, it's easier for them to see anicca. And so for some people, easier for them to see dukkha. Some people, easier for them to see anatta. Particularly the wisdom-based people, they can see anatta. faster, more clearly. And if you ask them to look at dukkha, they might not want to do so. Ask them to look at anicca also, they say it's boring. If you ask them to look at anatta, that is something that captivates their attention. Whatever it is. You want to do anicca also can, you want to do dukkha also can, you want to do all also can, or you just do one also can, as long as it results in being weary of the world, detachment and liberation. Alright? So there's no hard and fast rule. Different techniques apply to different people. Okay, now there's another new slide which I just put in just now. This is about Panya and Vijnana. This is found in the Mahavedala Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 43. This is a dialogue between Asma Sariputta and Asma Mahakottita, two very, very outstanding disciples of the Buddha in terms of wisdom. Sariputta is the chief disciple in terms of wisdom, and Mahakottita is also famous for expounding in detail what the Buddha has only spoken in brief. So they were having a conversation, and I think Asma Mahakottita asked Asma Sariputta many questions. And one of them is about Panya and Vijnana. Panya normally translated as wisdom, and Vijnana translated as consciousness, but I did not translate it here. And he asked about Panya and Vijnana. Are they together or not together? Are they separate? And this is the answer. These states are conjoined, not disjoined. It is impossible to separate these states from each other in order to describe the difference between them. Then he asked, then what's the difference between one and the other? And the answer is, between these states that are conjoined, not disjoined, wisdom is to be developed, consciousness is to be fully understood. This is the difference between them. Okay, let me explain. Earlier on, when I talked about the citta, the luminous citta, I told you that the defilements are just visitors. They don't belong to the citta, right? Then what belongs to the citta? Then where does panya come from? Is panya inside or outside? Is it part of the citta, or is it also another visitor that you invite in? Alright? So from here we see that, it is actually intrinsic in the mind. Panya is intrinsic in the mind. It's just a matter of developing it. Right? That's why panya is to be developed. And vijnana is to be understood in what sense? It is to be fully understood in the sense that it is dukkha. First noble truth. In the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Buddha talked about all types of dukkha, right? And it says, in brief, the 5 aggregates of clinging are dukkha. Right? So vijnana is also one of them, and this is to be seen in terms of dukkha. Right? So that ends this